Maybe we just need to be reminded it's not the hours you put in. It's what you put in the hours that count. A guy comes home at night, exhausted, falls into the chair, and it's not been going. Here's the key. Don't mistake movement for achievement. Little cares, little duties that cheat people out of big opportunities. And it happens every day. And I don't know what to do about it. Some people have the incredible ability to major in minor things. Learn to separate majors and minors. Here's something that requires minor time. Here's something that requires major time. Busy, that may not be the deal. That is the doing. Some people are busy all day long doing figure eights. I mean, they're not making much forward progress. Keep coming back around where they started. The critical moment in a salesperson's career is when they are directly interacting with a potential customer. That's what we call major time. On the other hand, the time spent traveling to meet the prospect or making plans for the meeting falls into the category of minor time. When you're face-to-face with the prospect, that's major time. Conversely, tasks like organizing files on the prospect or contemplating future interactions are considered minor time. It's important to prioritize and focus more on major time activities to maximize success in sales. Here's major time in the presence of. So you've just got to arrange your sales career so that most often you're in the presence of, not on the way to, not keeping books on, not thinking about, not making records for, but in the presence of. When a salesperson realizes they've been investing too much time in less important tasks, it can significantly impact their earning potential. For example, if their potential career income is $200,000, but they've been overly focused on minor tasks, they may end up with only $60,000 earned from crucial activities. While minor tasks have their importance, the key is to prioritize major tasks, especially those involving direct interactions. If you find yourself struggling with certain tasks, it's advisable to delegate them to someone more skilled instead of spending excessive time on them. For instance, if managing your finances becomes a burden, consider entrusting the task to an accountant. It allows you to focus on major responsibilities, ultimately contributing to a more successful and lucrative career. I used to tell myself I'd handle the bookkeeping, but I eventually realized it wasn't the best use of my time. It only cost me an extra $50 to $60 each month to have an accountant take care of it in those days. And I know I'm going to save the $50. But you can't believe what I started losing in productivity because I tried to save the $50. Consistently promising to change without following through can be frustrating. Instead of making unfulfilled promises, it's more effective to organize a plan to ensure the task gets completed. Save yourself from the cycle of promising and not delivering. You can either handle the task yourself if necessary or delegate it to someone else, freeing up your time for more crucial matters. Take a moment to assess your situation and determine if you can have someone cover for you. In any interaction with people, it's essential to grasp the 20-80 rule, a principle that you should work with, not against. Understanding and applying this rule can greatly enhance your effectiveness when dealing with various individuals from different backgrounds. Success is moving in the opposite of the normal negative downward pull. Life emerging from a seed defies gravity. Although gravity wants to pull the seed downward, the soil pulls it down. The seed comes to life, establishes roots, and begins growing. Interestingly, it grows upward against gravity. Success in life, in essence, involves moving in the opposite direction, pushing against challenges. In various aspects of life, it often appears that a small percentage of people contribute significantly more to business, about 20%, while a larger group, around 80% less, contributes. This pattern is a peculiar aspect of life. And while it's tempting to question why, sometimes it's more beneficial to let the obvious guide us as the best teacher. Almost any part, any enterprise, right, whether it's a business or club or whatever, roughly 20% of the people do the majority of the work, about 80%. And the rest, 80%, contribute to a smaller part, so 20%. This is just how things usually work. And it's not easy to change. Here's some key points about this 20-80 rule. It's like there's a force pulling in the opposite direction always. Now, who tends to want most of your attention? It's the larger group, the 80%, whatever group you're dealing with. They might ask, where are the 80? But here's the trick. You need to resist that urge. It's not about ignoring them. It's about being smart and diplomatic. If you want to succeed, you have to do it. You should give 80% of your time to the crucial 20%, and the remaining 20% of your time can go to the larger group. Success is learning to move in the opposite direction of the normal negative pull. Somebody says, so how do you handle that? Well, here's the trick. You need to be smart about it. What I've learned with the 20-80 rule is this: give individual time to the important 20% and group time to the larger 80%. It's like sorting out who needs your attention more. For example, if the 80% is only contributing 20% to the business, I talk to them in groups, but for the high achievers in the 20%, I give them individual attention. Now, who usually wants your individual time? It's the larger group, the 80%, but what you need to do is be diplomatic and move in the opposite direction. You got to figure out how to balance your time. Group time for the 80, individual time for the 20%. Every leader needs some listening time to understand what's happening. In your listening time, give 80% of your attention to the crucial 20% and 20% to the larger 80%. Usually the larger group wants more of your listening time, but you've got to be smart and focus on what really matters. So you just have to learn to be diplomatic, getting in charge, mastering the situation. This is the big challenge. I remember starting some companies a long time ago. I would begin the company, manage everything, but then things changed. Before I knew it, the company was controlling me. Around the second year, I realized, hold on. I used to be in charge, but now I'm not. I used to have control, but now it's controlling. This happens with companies or even your daily routine. The key is to take charge and decide, I'm going to manage my day and not let it get chaotic. It's easy to get distracted by things that use up time, and before you know it, everything is out of control. Guess what? It never ends. It's trying to balance your life with everything. Time management might be to step down to something easier that doesn't harass you with the constraints of time. To get into the top 5%, follow these steps. Make a detailed plan for how you'll spend your work time. We call it a game plan. Write down your future activities before you start doing them. When someone asks, what are you going to do in the next 6 months? Don't just talk about it, show them. It's easier for someone knowledgeable to spot mistakes and suggest changes when they see your plan on paper. It's tough to correct a conversation. That's why you should think on paper. Write down your game plan, priorities, and regularly review your goals. This way you can figure out how to use your time wisely. Whatever priorities you're focusing on, I used to be at work thinking about taking my family to the beach. We hadn't gone in a while, and my family really wanted to go. So at work, I kept thinking about the beach. Then I finally went to the beach with my family. I found myself thinking I should be at work. It got confusing and upset my family because I was physically at the beach, but mentally at the office. Here's what I learned. When you're at work, focus on work. And when you're at the beach with your family, be fully present there. Don't mix the two to avoid confusion and keep everyone happy. A little girl said to her mommy, Daddy never plays with me. He comes home, he's got this briefcase, and he disappears and works on his papers and tells me to go to bed. And she's trying to explain, listen, your dad really loves you, but he has a lot of work to do. Sometimes he has to bring it home with him. She said, why don't they just put him in a slower group? If you haven't got time for your kids, you should consider a slower group. A guy worked for a company, says, oh, I got to own one of these. Finds out you've now got to work 24 hours a day all around the clock, and you've got to worry about all these people. The guy says, heck with this. I'm going back where I used to be. I played golf 3 times a week and made 3 times as much money as a salesperson equities run on a company. That's the deal. The lesson here is don't force yourself into something you don't like or choose. If you really want to be a millionaire and run a company, that's great, but you have to be willing to work hard for it. It's all up to you. There are no strict rules. There's no law saying you have to focus on something specific. Next, if you concentrate, you'll save a lot of time compared to getting distracted. Concentrating for a short time can be more effective than spending a whole day with distractions. I used to give that illustration. I read this little article in Reader's Digest that said, wherever you are, be there. Concentrate there. I used to try planning my day in the shower, but I'm still half asleep, and there I am trying to write a letter. What I figured out is it's better to enjoy the shower. Some business folks are already thinking about work while having breakfast, but it's better to focus on your meal and save work for the office. Wherever you are, be present and concentrate on that moment. Next, learn to say no. Nowadays, in a social society, it's easy to be pulled in different directions with social obligations. People tend to say yes to everything and end up with a super busy calendar. Politely say no when needed. For example, can say, I don't think I can, but if that changes, I'll let you know. Instead of saying yes and then finding ways to avoid it later. One of my colleagues says, don't let your mouth overload your back because it's easy to just obligate. One, to be nice. One, to be pleasant. One, to please. Try just pulled in too many directions. If you say yes too easily and too often, you can end up in a tricky situation. Next, you need to plan your time and protect some of it from being taken away. Set a specific time to deal with problems. We suggest dealing with problems after 3 o'clock. It doesn't mean you ignore them, just put them aside until that designated time. All the calls about problems, return them after 3 o'clock. What usually happens is, if a problem comes in at 9 o'clock and you say, okay, I'll handle it after 3, someone might call back before 3 and say, don't bother calling, we've sorted it out. If you take the call right away, you end up spending more time than needed. No matter how good you get, you're still going to make some errors in judgment. Before you start talking a lot or giving a long talk, learn to ask questions. Sometimes we end up talking for a while, but if you had asked a few questions earlier, you might have realized you were talking about the wrong things. It's important to ask questions first to make sure you're discussing the right topics. Time is the mysterious material that makes everything happen. With it, you can do anything. Without it, nothing is possible. Every day, you get a magical gift of 24 hours. It's like a purse filled with the raw material of the universe for your life. This time is yours and is the most valuable thing you have. No one can steal it from you, and everyone gets the same amount, no more, no less. In the world of time, there's no difference based on wealth or intelligence. Even if you're a genius, you don't get an extra hour a day, and there's no penalty. You can use your time however you want, and it won't be taken away from you. The best part is you can't go into debt with time. You can only use the moments that are happening now. Tomorrow is waiting for you, and you can't waste it in advance. You have to live each day with the 24 hours you get. From these hours, you have to spend time on your health, pleasure, money, contentment, respect, and the growth of your immortal soul. Using your time wisely is super important and very relevant to your life right now. If one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's whole life indefinitely. We shall never have any more time than we have, and we have always had all the time there is. We've all been given the same amount of time. I remember realizing that both rich and poor people have the same 24 hours a day. It struck me as a fascinating discovery. I thought, if they have the same time, what makes them different? And here's what life is all about, discovering the difference. Life is not just the passing of time. Life is a collection of experiences, the frequency and the intensity of experiences. Life is all about gathering experiences. Don't get stuck wasting time. Watching TV isn't necessarily a waste. There's good stuff there. But don't rely only on it for your life experiences. Don't miss out on the game, the show, or the performance. In the time away from your labor, in the time away from your commercial obligations, your commercial work, engage in all of this stuff. Make sure to collect experiences every day and every week you can. Let those experiences influence your work time, selling time, recruiting time, and the time you spend building something or creating a business. Don't keep putting things off for later, saying, I'll do it soon, I'll do it soon. Instead, make it part of your life now. That's what we call a good life. Spend time with your family and the people who matter to you, planning your life with them in mind. Take breaks, recharge, and grow outside of your work or business. When you return to your work after taking this time to balance your life, you'll notice that things will go much better on the job.